The slides you can send in the email with everything else.
Yeah, I can send the slideshow.
Yep,
Okay.
that works.
All right, sorry about that, you guys.
Not a problem.
Okay, so the first thing that you would do, change to the other workspace so that you'll see it in a second, is grab your piece of the insulated fabric and you'll decide how you want your pot holder to look. Okay, so you have 6 pieces or 5 pieces or 7, I'm not sure. I tend to change how much I put in there, but you'll just sort of lay them down on the top. You're just sort of auditioning to see, which ones do you like to go together? Do you like next to each other? Okay, and you'll lay them down until the whole thing is covered. Okay. And then if you want to change it around, or maybe I like this better in the middle. Okay, and then you come up with a pattern. And then if you want to, I always do this because I forget. In the corner, I'll put a little indication. I'm trying to draw upside down. So if this comes out right, does that look like a 2? It looks like a 5. Okay, so I'm going to do it this way. 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I know what order I had them in. Okay. Small detail, if you change the order afterward, the pot holder will still work. Okay, and then once you have that in mind, you're actually ready to start stitching. So in order to do that, we need a needle with thread in it. So let me show you how to do that. And I have a great big needle here. Oh, I forgot to say when I was going over the supplies, you do need a needle and thread or some embroidery floss. And I put that in the kits as well. Should have that. Okay, so I'm going to change back to the other camera. And just quickly thread a needle so that nobody was born knowing how to do that. So. Okay, so here I have a needle. This is a great big needle. This is for doll making or teddy bear making, but it's, which I used to do a lot of doll making, but this is great because I can show you, it's easy for you to see. So I like to get needles that have a nice big eye in them because they're easier to thread. This of course is the sharp part. Back a little bit there. So you want to avoid that if you can. And then all you do, got some nice green floss here, is hold the your floss near the tip, and then you can either just push it through the eye of the needle, or and if it splits like that, let me just show you what you can also do. I see there are people in the waiting room. Let me let them in. Okay. In your kit is also a little tool. This is a needle threader. It has a silver part that you hold, and then there's a little wire loop on the end of it. And to use that, you just take your needle and put the wire loop through the eye. That's really pretty easy to do. And then you put your thread through that wire loop, which is big, and it really is easy to get the thread through. Okay, I hope that you can see that. It's a little hard for me to tell. Okay, and then once you have your thread in the eye of the needle, oh, hold on a second. This is cut. Get the other side of it. All right, one more time. Okay, so there's the needle. Here's the threader. Okay, you put the threader through the eye. Okay, like that. Everything's backward for me, so it's a little tricky. Then your thread goes through the loop, like that. And then you just pull back gently, and that will thread the needle for you. Okay, so if your needle has a small eye or if it's giving you trouble, that's a way to solve that problem. Then you're going to take your 2 strands of thread and even them up more or less. Okay, and then you're going to make a knot at the end so that the stitches don't come out. So to do that, this is the knot that I do. It's kind of a kindergarten knot. I know there are a lot of fancy ways to make knots, but I just wrap the thread around my finger, take my finger out. I'm going to have that little loop and then put the threads through the loop and then just pull. Okay, then you've got a knot, you've got your threaded needle, and now you're ready to start sewing. Oh, about how long? Good question. A good rule of thumb is to make it as long as your arm. Okay, and then when you double it, it's going to be about 15 to 17 inches long. And that's good. You don't want your thread to be too long because then it tends to tangle while you're sewing. So this way you can just thread a few needles. That's another tip, is to thread 5 or 6 needles if you have them before you start, and that way you can just pick up a new needle when your thread gets short. Okay, so now we'll go back over to the other camera. Okay, and we have our fabric here, and I decided I'm going to start over here with number 1. So I'm going to pick these other ones off. And the first thing to do is to sew the fabric to the insulation along the outside edge here. Okay, not the inside edge, but the outside edge. Okay, so to do that, I've got a needle here with thread in it, and there's my knot at the end. Okay, and let me see. Okay, good. So I'm just going to start. It doesn't matter whether you start on the bottom, I mean underneath, or on top. I'm going to start on top just because it's easier for you to see. And to make your first stitch, you take your needle and push it into the fabric and through the insulation so it comes out the back. And then you'll pull until the knot stops the thread. Okay. Then you go over a little bit and push again and come up. Okay. And go over a little bit and this just go down. So if you already know how to sew, this part will be, you know, very familiar, a review. But that's what you're going to do. And you're sewing, you're aiming to sew all the way to the other side. Yes, you're attaching this fabric to the insulated fabric, or to the insulated batting. When it's in between like that, it's called batting. Okay, so you're just going to go down. Let me show you one more time, and I'll show you what it looks like on the other side. Okay, and then up. Okay, and I'm sewing about a ½ an inch from the edge, or a finger's width from the edge. Okay, it's going to look like that on the other side. And when you're sewing, you just want to be sure that your edges stay kind of lined up so that you're always connecting the 2 pieces of fabric. And you want to be careful that it doesn't shift over so that you could be sewing, but you're not actually sewing the 2 pieces together. Okay, so you'll continue, and then you'll learn that you can put your needle in and then just bring it out like that and pull. Okay, you don't have to go all the way down and up each time. Okay, so like that, and then just pull. And just continue. Now this stitch here is called the running stitch. And it's the stitch that a lot of people, even if they think they don't know anything about sewing, they still are kind of familiar with this stitch. And just check the chat. Okay. Okay, good. I think I got everybody's question. Okay, so you just keep going. Just relax. Take your time. And you may get to the point where your thread is getting a little bit short. And when you have about 4 inches of thread, something like that on your needle, you want to go ahead and make a knot so that these stitches stay in place and so that it's easy for you to make the knot. So let me show you how you make a knot on the fabric. Okay, you're going to make a little stitch. Okay, and this one can be just in the fabric. It doesn't have to be all the way through the insulation. It can just be in the fabric is okay. If you go through the insulation, it doesn't matter. That's okay too, but you don't have to like you're doing it for these other ones. Okay, so you make a tiny little stitch like that. Push your needle through. Okay, you'll end up with a little loop. You put your needle through the loop.
Hey, Ellen, just to interrupt really quickly,
Yeah.
that is the wrong side of the fabric facing up, correct?
No, this is the right side.
Okay.
Okay, that's
All right.
the right side. And you can see this is the dollar side. Good question.
Okay,
Okay,
perfect.
so right now you're going to have the right side facing up. It's a little tricky, you'll see, but it works out great. Okay, so, and I'll show you again on the next one. That helps me to know which fabric to use to show you. Okay, so once you have the knot there, then you can cut off the needle close to the knot, but make sure that, you know, be careful not to cut your knot at the same time. And then you can grab another needle. Like I said, you might want to thread several, but if not, just rethread your needle. And then you'll start where you would have started if you were just making a normal stitch. So same distance over. Pull until the knot stops the thread. And then come back up. And just carry on until you get to the end of where the insulated fabric is, so that you're done connecting the two. Okay, and then you can make another knot. Okay, and it just so happens that I ended up on the top of the fabric. If I was on this side, it wouldn't matter either. Okay, you just make your knot. So same thing that we just did. Tiny little stitch like that. Pull and you get a loop of thread. Make that a little neater for you. There we go. Okay, you have your loop. You put the needle through the loop and pull. Looks like I caught it on something. There we go. Okay, so then this one is attached, and we'll cut the thread again near the knot, but making sure that you avoid cutting the knot. And I'm going to use the rest of this thread. So I'm going to make another knot at the end. And then I'll show you how we do the quilt as you go. Okay, so this is the only one that you actually sew with the right side up. Okay, the next one, I'm going to use this green polka dot. And you see it's bright on this side and it's dull on this side. Okay, so this is the right side. This is the wrong side or doll side. And I'm going to put it so that the two right sides are touching. Okay, just lay one on top of the other. And now I'm going to sew again, but I'm going to sew on this row right here. And if you want to make yourself a stitching line, just to, there we go, give a little bit of guidance for yourself. Okay, so I'm going to line up the edges, just fold it a little bit there, and then just eyeball a stitching line. Now, I think that I changed, this was actually going to be number 4, but I wanted to be sure that you could see the right side and wrong side better. Okay, so I'm just eyeballing, that's going to be my sewing line. And here's the thread that I still had left. And I can tell I'm going to run out of it, but I've got another needle threaded and ready to go when I do. So I'm going to start same way. My stitches here are about, I don't know, about ½ an inch long. They could be 1/4 of an inch with about the same amount of space in between. For this project, you don't have to have small stitches. And also the embroidery floss is very strong. Different color thread is fine. None of this is going to show. You'll see in just a second. You can have a different color for every part that you sew. It's not going to make a difference. Okay, so I'm just stitching along. This is what it looks like on the other side. Okay, keeping everything nice and flat, and my edges, these edges where I'm sewing, keeping those lined up together. Okay, now I can see I'm getting to where my thread is getting kind of short. And I think I'll make one more stitch. This time I'm going to make the knot on the other side, because that just happens to be where I came out. Okay, same way, just a tiny little stitch. Okay, like that. Pull through. There's my loop. Kind of messy, but it's there. And put the needle through and pull. And cut. Okay, and now I'm going to turn that back over. I have yet another color of thread. Okay, and start again. Okay. And again, here I'm just making sure that these two edges where I'm sewing, wherever it is that I'm sewing, that those edges stay together and nice and neat. I'm not concerned about this side. I think this is a smaller needle, so it's a little tougher to pull. Okay. And then when you get to the end, I'm going to do the same thing. Okay. Some of the fabric that I have put in the kits is vintage fabric, and that means it has a tighter weave than it tends to today. Okay, so I have one stitch left, and that's why it can be a little bit tougher to pull, but just stay with it. It'll go through for sure. Okay, so we'll make the knot. Okay, there's my loop. Needle goes through and pull. All right, and then cut. And now when you turn this over, you see that all of the raw edges here are inside next to the insulation. And so when you do the next one, let me see, everything I have here doesn't have a really great right side and wrong side. This one is the right side. It's a little bit brighter than this one. Okay, so I'm going to put this one like that. I'd sew, lining up these two edges, sew along here, and when I turn it, it's going to be like that. I actually think that this one is so close. I think that's the right side. Yeah, so right side should be touching, and when you turn it, it will look like that. Okay, and then you'll have one or two more. Okay, good. This one I can really see. There's the right side. So I would put it down like this. Sew along this edge here. And when you turn it, it's going to look like that. Okay, so you'll cover the whole piece of insulation. And there will be some fabric hanging off of the edge because the fabric is longer than the insulation is. Okay, let me show you one that I've done. Okay. Put this to one side. Did anybody have a question on that before I move this over? Okay, I see there's something in the chat. Okay. Okay, there'll be a list of all of the supplies in the handout. Okay, so you'll have that later. Okay, so here's where we stopped. You do the same thing until you've covered the whole piece of insulation. And you'll end up with something that looks like this. Okay, so here's the first one that we did. And then each one turning over. And if you, this was with a little bit wider pieces of fabric. If you want to have more stripes, you would just make your fabric narrower. Okay, there's the last one sewn on. And this is what it looks like on the back. Okay, just these hand strips. And the fabric is longer on each side. Okay, so when you get to that point, now you can trim off the extra. Okay. And on this side. Okay. All right. And now we're going to make the little hanging loop. So you should have a piece of ribbon in your kit or tape, twill tape. And I had one. Where did mine go? Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay. So however long you'd like your loop to be, I like mine to be long. So I'm going to just fold it in half like this. Okay, and I'm going to sew this together just to hold it in place so that nothing shifts around. And that'll just take a stitch or two. And use the green so that you can see the contrast. Okay, so I'm holding these two pieces together. Just going to put my needle through, pull until the knot stops the thread, and then make a stitch and do that 2 times. So, okay, so it'll look something like that. It doesn't have to look neat or anything. Okay, and then I will make a knot. Trying to keep the loops nice so that you can see how that works. This one wants to twist around. There we go. Okay, then cut that. Okay, and now we'll decide where we want to put the hanger. I'm going to put mine up in this corner here. And you might think that since it's going to be hanging, you would want it to look like that. But when you sew, you do everything kind of upside down and backwards. So you'll put it this way, okay? And because it's sewn here, it won't, these two pieces won't move around too much because we put that stitch in, and we're going to do the same thing to sew this loop to our pot holder. And we're going to go through all of the insulation and the fabric and everything with a couple of stitches. Okay, so I'm putting the knot back in. Okay. And it doesn't matter whether you start on the top or the bottom. I'm doing it on the top so you can see really well. I'm just going to stitch this in, sewing right underneath where I did the other stitch. Okay, so just one time. This is just holding it in place so that when we sew everything together, it won't move. Okay, so I'm going to come back on this side and make my knot. If you wanted to put 2 stitches there, you could. It doesn't really matter. Okay, cut this off. All right, so now, and this goes on the right side of the fabric, you know, where you can see all the pretty work that you've done. Okay, so now we're ready to sew the back and the front together. So here's my backing fabric. And I'm just lining it up so that all of the edges are covered. I'll check on this side. You can see that the edge of the backing fabric is plenty big for the pot holder. Okay, and then I'm going to give myself a little sewing line that is going to leave some space down here at the bottom for me to turn this right side out. Okay, so the line will be about 1/2 inch. You can see this edge here. You can see through the fabric where the pot holder edge is. And I want to have a line that's about 1/2 inch. I'm trying to draw this lightly because it is Sharpie. And then up this side, across, on this side, and to about there. Okay, I like to leave this wide enough so that my hand can get inside. Okay, now if you have pins and if you like to use them, you can pin this together so that it stays while you're sewing, but you don't really need pins. So I'm going to demonstrate it without it just in case you don't have any. But for those people who sew and who do have some, you could pin this. Okay, let me get another needle. Okay, so now I'm just going to sew on my line all the way around, stopping when I get short on thread, and leaving an opening here at the bottom, or it probably looks like the top for you. For me, it's like the bottom. Okay, so put my needle in, push all the way through. Okay, then come back up. And just sew on your line. Don't worry about being, real exact or precise or anything. Think about the G's Bin quilters and how they made so much beauty from improvisation. Right now, I just want to show you when you get to the corner, okay, you can put your needle into that line, right, like that, and then just come up on the other side of it. Okay, so it's super easy to turn a corner. And you can also, after you've been sewing for a little while, if this is your first time, you can put more than one stitch on your needle at one time just by sort of poking it in and out like that, and then pull, and you'll end up with 2 stitches there. Okay, I'm trying to do this a little bit inside of the line so that you can see it. I should have gotten a different color Sharpie or a different color thread. Okay, so you just keep going, and when your thread is about to run out, okay, I think I have 2 more stitches maybe. Okay, I'm going to make my knot on this side. You want to make sure that your stitches stay nice and flat. If your stitches get kind of loopy, then they don't have the strength that you want them to have. Okay, so there's my tiny stitch, there's my loop, and pull down for the knot. And then I just want to show you one other thing. Let's see. On this part. Okay, so I'm going to start again, just like I was making a regular stitch, and I'm trying to be sure that I'm going to be connecting the fabric. So that's where I was. 2 stitches. And when you do it for a while, you'll get 3 or 4 or even more stitches on your thread. My fabric is shifting a little bit. I just want to show you what to do when you get to the little hanger. Okay, so that's how you pull it down. Make sure that it stays flat. Check the other side. Okay, so I'm ready to turn the corner. Come up here. And when you get to where the loop is, okay, the hanger, you want that to stay inside, and you can try and feel with your fingers that it's down and out of the way, that it's not accidentally up here or something, so that if you were sewing, that you sew the loop where you don't want it to be. Okay, my mom always says that you use all your senses when you sew. So you have to use your sense of feel here. Okay, make sure that it's out of the way. And then when you get to the hanger itself, you want to be sure that you've got 1 or 2 stitches at least that are right in the hanger. Okay, so you can bring your needle up. You can check, okay, make sure that can you see that the needle is right in the hanger there? Okay, you don't get any points if you don't check it or anything. You can just make sure that it's in there nice and strong. You can even put an extra stitch if you want to go back one stitch. And then keep going as usual. Okay, so I'm not going to stitch all this tonight, but you would go all the way around to there and stop and make your knot. So you'll have something that looks okay like this. I just have a little bit left to do here. This was some flowered fabric that I had. Let's see if I have another needle with thread in it. Okay, there we go. Just so happens that it's also green. So I'm just going to finish up. And this here is also, it was fabric that I pieced together to make it the right size. It kept me from throwing away scraps. Okay. And just take your time because the insulation, it's thick fabric. You know, it's not hard to sew, but it can take a little bit of time. So just take your time with it. Okay, here I am at the corner. And I'm going to come to where I was. When I was drawing and where I left that opening. Okay, check on the other side. Make sure all my stitches are nice and flat. Okay, last stitch or last two. All right. So now when you have that, you're going to make another knot. Smooth everything out. Okay. Here's my loop. Okay, and cut. And then we're really almost done. We're going to just trim off some of the extra fabric here. You want to be super careful not to cut your stitching, but by trimming off some of this extra, it makes it easier to turn this right side out. Okay, I'm cutting off the extra of the hanger. This one is going to be a green ribbon hanger when it's turned right side out. Okay, now here at the bottom, you just want to cut to the area that you left open, like that. Okay, because it'll make it easier for us to finish it later. All right. So now you'll reach inside between the two, the back and the part that you did the quilt as you go. Okay, and you might have to pull a little bit with your hand if you made your opening small like I did. Okay, then just push this through. And keep pushing, keep pushing. It's going to look like a kind of a ball of a mess for a minute. But then when you push out the corners and you'll start to kind of see where they are. And I've got one more up here at the top where the hanger is. There's my hanger. Reach inside and push that out. Okay, and then you almost have a pot holder, not quite. Okay, like that. And all we have to do now is close the bottom. I could probably push these corners out a little bit more, but I'm going to leave them for now. But you would use your finger or something that is, you know, round, like the eraser end of a pencil. I wouldn't use the Sharpie because, believe me, when you put it in there, the cap would come off and things just don't go well. So the eraser end, the big end of a chopstick, any of those things would help to push that out. Okay, so then here to push out the corners. So here now we have this opening, and to close it, you're going to turn down a bit of the fabric that you've quilted and the insulation and the backing, the back fabric. It's going to want to do this by itself anyway, so this part won't be hard at all. Okay, and it's going to be like that. And now we just need to sew this across. And where's my sample again? Here it is. So we'll just sew this across here. Okay. And to do that, one more needle. Okay. So you can put your needle inside of that opening like this. Okay, and you can just go through the quilted side and pull. And what that's going to do is bring the knot to the inside of your work, so it won't show on the back. Okay, and now you're just going to make your stitches across. Okay, and you're sewing kind of near to the edge so that the two folded edges come together and they don't flip outside. And you're going to be going through a lot of fabric here because the insulated fabric is folded, and then you got the back fabric too. So just take your time. And push. The needles that are in the kits are very sturdy needles, so they should make their way through this fabric even though it feels thick. I must be right on a seam there. There we go. Okay, you want to check on the back, make sure that the stitches are flat. And then you're just going to continue until you get to the other edge, at other side of the hole. Go. And I'll tell you one more thing when I get there. And this one really is, this fabric here, if you have it in your kit, it's very, I think it's from the 50s actually. It's a beautiful fabric, but it's really tightly woven. Okay, almost there. Jeez, it's got a mind of its own. Okay. And if you want to, you can just finish up when you get to the other edge. Oh, that fabric is really tough. Or you can sew all the way around the pot holder and it will look like it's, you know, part of your design. So that's up to you. This one, there we go. Okay, let's see if this is better this way. Give it a little help. Well, you know what? I usually don't use a thimble at all, but if you ever wondered what it was for, this is what it's for, because it can give that extra push to a needle. You can also use your table sometimes will help. Jeez. Okay, 2 more stitches, hopefully. Or, oh wait, am I already? Oh, I'm already at the other side, yay. Okay, so now here, I'm going to make my knot. I like to make it on the back this time. Okay, so there's my little stitch. Okay, and make my loop and pull through. And then I like to put the needle into the fabric and come out a little distance away, like that. And then when you pull the thread through, pull it a little bit extra tight. And when you cut it, the ends of the thread will go inside of the pot holder and you won't see that. Like that. So you see now the thread's inside there, you get a neater finish. And there you have your G-spin pot holder, inspired. So once you get to making them, you can actually, they go together really pretty quick. Does anyone have questions? Yeah, need more muscle. Yeah. Yeah, well, just know that this fabric has made a long journey to be in your hands. So, and once you get through it, it's very pretty. If anyone has a sewing machine and uses a sewing machine, you would do exactly the same technique to make something like this. Okay, no changes at all. Oh, glad you like it. And it's so nice because they really do, they work great. So Layla, I don't know if there are any questions that you might have, or
So just to recap, I'm not as quick of a hand stitcher as you are. We've acknowledged that tonight. But I love the final result, and we will have a recording. I will try and get that out to everyone as soon as possible. So for everyone who's still on the stitching and not backing yet, it's perfectly fine. We're going to try and get this video out to you. And feel free to email me with any questions, just so that I can troubleshoot on my end, try and get things out to you. If you still haven't picked up a kit, or you had one listed, just contact me and we do have it set aside for you. And please feel free to email me any of the pictures of the finished results so I can share them with Ellen and we can get them out on our social media. I'm super excited to see what y'all all made. And I love the cute daisy fabric. It worked out very well.
oh, great, great. And also you shouldn't feel, remember, I had some steps already completed, and also that I could show you this within the time frame that we had. But it will probably take you, about 90 minutes or so maybe to make this. So don't feel like you are, not stitching fast enough or anything like that. It's really a demonstration that I do, and then you can sew afterward. Can we get that installation? Yes, you can. Not at Joanne's, but you can it's called Enslaved. I'll put it in the chat. And wait a minute, why can't I chat? Okay, I'll send it to Layla, what it's called. You can get it on Amazon, but you can also, if you shop at Hobby Lobby, you can buy it there by the piece. You can buy this, you would buy like a quarter of a yard or a third of a yard, something like that. You'll get much more than you need to make one. That'll make 2 or 3.
Your whole kitchen can basically be filled with these pot holders. And I feel like that's how mine is going to look. So I will definitely send you a ton of pictures after I've done about 50 of them.
Yeah, no, it doesn't go in the microwave. That's a metal fabric inside. But what you can, another thing that someone did, a patron did, was they made 2. They sewed them together and they left an opening. Let me show you this way, an opening on one side, open on the bottom, and they made it into a tea cozy for their teapot. It was so cool.
Good. I have a question.
Yes.
How do you wash it? Is it machine washable?
Throw it in the wash. Wash, dryer, everything, but not in the microwave.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So does anyone have any more questions before we wrap up?
I do. Being that it has the plastic, could you put that in a dryer? Wouldn't it sort of melt?
It doesn't melt. It's not plastic. It's a metal. It's a metal fabrication, and the batting is just ordinary like quilt batting. But they blend the 2 things together. So it can definitely go in the wash and dryer.
And it's called?
It's called Enslaved. It's INSUL dash, I think it's BRITE.
Enslaved. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And it's also in the instructions.
Okay, so I will be getting out those instructions to everyone as soon as possible, as well as the recording. And we are looking so forward to seeing the final result from all of you. I'm so excited. And please feel free to share your feedback with me through the email that I sent out. And that way, I can get it to Ellen, I can get it to the department in charge, and I can take some constructive criticism myself. So that would be great.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Not a problem. Everyone enjoy your night.
All right.
You
Have a
too.
good night,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
here's
you.
mine so far.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
That's really pretty.
That is nice.
So nice.
Okay.
Just finishing.
Pretty nice.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh, that's so fast.
What?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Good night.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.